Hello, welcome to the 30k channel. I'm your host David, and welcome to Alpha Legion versus Spaceballs. And welcome back to two returners, Keith and Josh. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Good to be back.
It is really good to be back. Now, you will know Keith because we had him yesterday on. This is his second game in 2 days. So thank you, Keith, for doing that for us. And I must apologise firstly to Josh because he contacted me when we had a dropout for Keith's second game. And I thought, I don't really know this guy. And then he walked through the front door this morning. I was like, I'm sure I know that guy. And of course, you came on with your friend maybe a year ago now, was it?
It's July. July last year.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, against Iron Warriors. It was a hard-fought game.
It was an interesting game.
Well, your interest is probably a good way to put it. Yeah.
If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. It was very cool. Two good friends. It was a really cool game. All right, so let's do the introductions. Keith, we know about you already, but let's have it again for a second time.
Yeah, Keith from the Mournable podcast. Second time on here with the Wolves.
Yeah.
Looking forward to going up against the Alpha Legion. It's kind of a bit of a cliche game, but I don't actually get to play this that often, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. And Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Josh, returner. Played Alpha Legion last time, playing Alpha Legion again. So I've got a very different army to the Space Wolves. When you see the deployment, you'll see there's not very much on the table. So I'm looking for. I've never played Space Wolves before. So this is the first time for me. Please be gentle.
We've got two really, really lovely armies. Keith's army is so lovely, the grey and all the knotwork and everything is fantastic. And I just love the blue and the black of the Alpha Legion. They look quite sinister, I think, which is pretty cool. So two really lovely forces and two very, very unique forces, which you will see in the army showcase in a moment. Gents, if we have a quick look at your deployment, Josh, you mentioned you've got nothing, very little on the table.
Very little on the table, yeah. So a mutable tactic, taking infiltrate because of the mission. I kind of need the outflank rule. I've got a couple of rapiers on the table to hopefully get some anti-tank shots down the table early on with the Sakaram sort of hiding around the back to do something first turn, hopefully. I've got one Rhino on the table just in case those Wolves manage to get a first turn charge, or at least get close to me so I can get some shots off.
You've got a bit of air support there. You've got a Xiphon though, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got Siphon. I've got a Caestus Assault Ram coming in as well. So hopefully they'll come in early and start taking out some units. The Xiphon last game that I played on the channel didn't come in till turn 4, and then it missed with every single shot that it took for the game, even with Twin Linked. So I'm hoping it can actually do something this time. The Caestus Assault Ram is going to have some Terminators in, but hopefully it can drop those templates down on the big blobs of Space Wolves that are going to be running towards me.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. The big blob of Space Wolves, there are tons, Keith. You've got 3 units of 15, some Terminators. It's quite a formidable ground force.
Yeah, I love my infantry for the Wolves. I think with the Wolves, a lot of the character comes with the big squads. So, 45 Grey Slayers and a bit of fun with the Varagir. So,
and we've also got the new Aquator tanks, if that's the correct pronunciation, hopefully. But please let us know if it's not. They're an interesting choice, right?
Yeah, I mean, in my local gaming group, everyone runs Vindicators. So I wanted that Strength 10 blast, but something that wasn't a Vindicator. And then they got released, and it's like, how could you not resist? They're a lovely model. They do have a very unique rule with being heavy, which I think the only other tank is the heavy support Lehman Russies in like Militia and Solar Ox.
Yep.
Which makes them very slow compared to the rest of the army, but it'd be interesting to see how they get on.
24-inch range load for that Morbus launcher there. It feels like it should be 60 inches, but I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of works out, really. But Strength 10 AP2, that's pretty good.
Yeah. It's be interesting to see how they get on. So
I'm hoping they scatter onto their own units with that close artillery support.
It could be a thing. It could happen. And if we look at the mission deployment, we've gone for Shatter Strike, which essentially you've got to get in your opponent's deployment zone, which is quite good, I think, for both of these forces. Keith has got very fast moving, and Josh has got some really great infiltrating and deep striking units. So there will be a bit of an exchange of deployment zones.
Yeah, it's kind of two different ways of achieving the same objective. The Wolves rushing towards it and the Alpha Legion doing the sneaky beaky stuff.
Yeah.
And coming in around the back.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, absolutely. And we've gone for Search and Destroy, which is the table quarters with a little circle in the middle that you can't deploy in, which I think is going to be really tricky as we negotiate around Pride Rock. You've got to go left or right. Going through is a bit tricky, although there is a gantry. So I'm really interested to see how both the armies take that on. Just your thoughts on the deployment and everything else, gents? Any comments? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. I mean, I took a while to study the table. Really, it's going to be quite tricky for the Alpha Legion in terms of that outflank. As you say, there's the bit in the middle that is a bit more difficult to deal with. So you're kind of funneled around the edges, which is great, and it's going to. I think it's going to give some really good thematic sort of combats in those parts of the table, really.
Yeah, I mean, my deployment was just trying to fit everything on the table.
Yeah, you had no choice, really, did you?
No. But yeah, it's going to be interesting as I've filled up mine, and you've got 4 units.
Yeah, it's really worrying that come beginning of my turn 1, I've got nothing left on the table. But no, it should be okay. I've got drop pod coming down turn 1.
Yeah, you've hidden everything that I can get to, so it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
I think it's going to be quite a tactical one, actually. There's going to be a lot of manoeuvring, a lot of positioning, which is good. I think lead to a really interesting game.
Or I don't think it's against my weakness.
It's going to be a fun game. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, in terms of deploy first, go first, the Space Wolves deployed first.
Yep.
Alpha Legion, what's your plan here?
I don't know if I'm going to seize, actually.
Okay.
I quite like it. It's grabbing the objectives, so it might be worth wiping you off an objective or killing a unit in my deployment zone to sort of deny you the victory points. So I kind of want to see what you do. Okay. I need those tanks to come closer to me so that I can kill them.
All right, so as it stands then, Space Wolves will go first, or the Velka Fenrica, depending on what side of the coin you decide on there, or the route, whatever you fancy. But we will go into Space Wolves turn 1.
2,500 points of Space Wolves, led by a Praetor. We're running no right of war, and the Warlord trait is Hunger of the Void. Leading the Space Wolves is a Legion Praetor with Ether Rune Armour, Digital Lasers, Iron Halo, a Mastercrafted Paragon Blade and a Thunderhammer. Next HQ, we have a Speaker of the Dead with Ether Rune Armour. He's armed with a bolt pistol and a power maul. The third and final HQ is a Centurion with Artificer Armour, Melter Bombs, a Great Frost Blade and a Refractor Field. For the first troop choice is a Grey Slayer pack, led by a Huskull with Artificer Armour, a Combat Shield, Frost Axe and Melter Bombs. In the squad, we have 3 Bolters, 5 Combat Shields, 3 Power Fists and a Legion Vexilia. The second troop choice is another 15-man Grey Slayer pack. The Huskull has Artificer Armour, a Frost Axe, Melter Bombs. In the unit, we have 8 Bolters, a Power Maul, a Power Sword, Power Fist, and 2 Combi Plasmas. The third and final troop choice is another 15-man Grey Slayer pack. The Huskull has Artificer Armour, Combat Shield, Power Fist. In the squad, they have 4 Combat Shields, 4 Power Axes, and 3 Power Fists. For the first Elite's choice is 2 Apothecaries. One has Artificer Armour and a Power Sword. The other one has Artificer Armour and an Augury Scanner. For the second Elite squad is a unit of 3 Quad Launcher Rapiers with Shatter Shells. For the third Elite choice is a Varagir Wolfguard Terminator squad. The Varagir Thane is armed with a Frost Blade and a Thunderhammer. The unit has 2 Frost Claws with 2 Reaper autocannons, and then I have 2 Chain Fists with 2 Reaper autocannons. For the first heavy support squad for the Space Wolves is a las cannon squad of 6 models, 5 with las cannons, and the sergeant has Artificer Armour and Augury Scanner. For the second and third heavy support choice is an Arquiter Bombard armed with a hull-mounted Morbus Heavy Bombard and side sponsons of heavy bolters.
2,500 points of Alpha Legion, running the Cause of the Hydra Rite of War, led by a Legion Praetor with the Princess of Deceit Warlord trait, with the Infiltration Mutable Tactic. First HQ and Army Warlord is a Legion Praetor. He's armed with Tartarus Terminator armor, an Iron Halo, digital lasers, Combi Bolter, Paragon Blade, and Power Dagger. Second HQ is an Alpha Legion Saboteur. He's armed with Artificer armor, Refractor Field, Camellia Line, Combi Melter, Melter Bombs, and Venom Spheres. The 3 troops choices for the Alpha Legion are identically armed Legion Tactical Squads, armed with additional combat blades, a Legion Vexilla. The Sergeants are armed with Artificer armor, Power Fist, and a Power Dagger, and they're all riding in a Legion Rhino with no upgrades. First elite unit for the Alpha Legion are Linnean Terminators. There's 5 models, 2 with Power Fists, 2 with Power Axes. The Harrower is armed with a Chain Fist and a Power Dagger with a Venom Sphere harness. They all carry Volkite charges, and their dedicated transport is an Ambulance Pattern Dreadcore drop pod. Second elite slot for the Alpha Legion is a 6-man Legion Terminator squad. They're armed with Tartarus Terminator armor. In the squad there are 3 Combi Bolters, 3 Power Fists, 2 Twin Lightning Claws, and the Sergeant is armed with a Combi Bolter, Chain Fist, and a Power Dagger. They will be riding in the Caestus Assault Ram. Third and fourth elite slot for the Alpha Legion are 2 independent Rapier weapon batteries armed with laser destroyers. Fast attack option for the Alpha Legion is a Xiphon Interceptor. It's armed with 2 twin-link las cannons, Xiphon rotary missile launcher, and has been upgraded with the armoured cockpit and ground tracking auguries. First heavy support option for the Alpha Legion is a Caestus Assault Ram. It's armed with a hull-mounted twin-linked Magnum Melter and has been upgraded to take 2 missile launchers. It's also armed with a Machine Spirit. Second heavy support choice for the Alpha Legion is a Sakaran Arcus Strike Tank. It's armed with Arcus warheads, las cannon sponsons, dozer blade, and extra armour.
Space Wolves turn 1 movement. At the start of the turn, the Alpha Legion used their Warlord trait of Princeps of Deceit, which meant that the Space Wolves had to take 3 pinning checks, which they chose the Varagir, the quad launchers, and the heavy support squad of las cannons, which all 3 managed to pass their pinning check. In the movement, the Bombard moved forward 6 inches to try and get a better line of sight for later on. Same with the quad launchers, they've moved 6 inches to get a line of sight. The Varagir stepped up on the rock, but they only managed a 2-inch movement. The first Grey Slayer squad with the Praetor in it moved forward 6 inches into the ruin. The second Grey Slayer squad hasn't moved because they haven't really got any room to go anywhere, so they're hoping for a run move a little bit later. The third and final Grey Slayer squad, they moved 6 inches, shuffling along just to spread out, waiting for the reserves to come in. And then last, the Bombard just moved 6 inches, try and get a line of sight for the later on assault from the Alpha Legion. Space Wolves turn 1 shooting. The heavy weapon las cannon squad shot at the laser destroyer Rapier, causing 3 wounds. Despite the cover saves, managed to take out the gun and a crew, which led to a leadership check, which he managed to pass. With the shooting being completed by the las cannons, all what was left was the run moves for the Grey Slayers, which the first 2 assault Grey Slayer units managed to roll a 6, and the shooty Grey Slayers just managed to roll a 5. With the end of the phase, we've made a good dent into the laser Rapier destroyers, just trying to move into position, try and get line of sight to the sneaky Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion turn 1 movement phase. After the destruction of one of the Rapier laser destroyers, the crewman of the destroyed Rapier has come down to join the second Rapier. The Ambulance Pattern Dreadclaw drop pod with the Linnean Terminators has deep struck into the back line of the Alpha Legion to protect itself for the oncoming Space Wolves. The Rhino has remained stationary for a potential counterattack, and the Sakaran Arcus has just moved out from behind cover to get line of shot on the Arquitous Bombard. Alpha Legion turn 1 shooting. The remaining crewman from the dead Rapier took aim and shot at the Space Wolves Grey Slayers in front. He hit, wounded, but it was saved. The Rapier Laser Destroyer looked down the barrel and took aim at the Las Cannon Heavy Support Squad. He hit and he killed. The Sakaran Arcus, after coming out from behind cover, took aim at the Arquita Bombard, fired 4 shots with its Arcus warheads, hit and glanced twice, but it was the side sponsor and las cannons that did the big work, causing an explosion, blowing up the Bombard, causing a wound on the Rapier behind, but did not kill. Turn 1 Alpha Legion turn summary. Bit of a tactical one first turn with the Dreadclaw hiding behind cover, awaiting the onrushing Space Wolves. The taking out a las cannon with the Rapier was good for future reserves coming in for the Alpha Legion. But the real hitter of the game was the Arcus taking out that Arquita Bombard, meaning there's more manoeuvrability now for the Alpha Legion around that flank.
Space Wolves turn 2 movement. We've just tried to surge forwards, waiting for the sneaky Alpha Legion to arrive, with the Varigate just moving forward, followed by all the Grey Slayers. The las cannon team has stayed back where they are to hold the line. The Bombard has moved 6 inches forward just to give enough space for the other Grey Slayer unit just to cover this back edge, waiting for the Alpha Legion to arrive at the back. Turn 2 shooting. The Grey Slayer squads have just run forward. The one over the back there has only managed to get 2 inches further forward, but the other one has managed to get a whopping 6. The Space Wolves heavy weapon team opened up with their las cannons into the Rapiers, causing 3 wounds, but with a cover save, just killing the gun. Managed to pass their leadership, so they're staying there. Next to fire is the Varigir into the Sakaran Arcus. Only 2 of them had line of sight, but managed to take a whole point with a glancing hit. End of Space Wolves turn 2 shooting. Just trying to reduce their firepower and just surging forwards, trying to get into the grips of the Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion turn 2 movement phase. Reserve roles, the Saboteur has entered the table, and with his sabotage attack has managed to take a penetrating hit on the Arquita Bombard, give him a weapon destroyed on the Morbus Bombard itself. The 1 tactical squad has arrived from reserve outflanking in a Rhino, and is just going to remain behind cover until the threat level has reduced. Caestus Assault Ram has come in from reserve. He is in zooming mode and he's taken aim on the blob of Space Wolves running towards the Alpha Legion line. The 3 remaining crewmen from the Rapiers, with no Rapier laser destroyers left, are going to take aim with their bolters at the oncoming horde. The Rhino and the Anvilus drop pod are remaining back for a countercharge in later turns, and the Sakaran Arcus has moved 12 inches and positioned itself to take aim against the Varigir Terminators. Alpha Legion turn 2 shooting. The remaining Rapier crewmen took aim at the Space Wolves. Whilst hitting, caused no wounds. However, the Caestus Assault Ram, as it came flying in with the Magna Melter, dropped its large blast template and 2 crack missiles, wounded and killed 6 of the Grey Slayer squad. Forced a leadership check, however it was passed. Sakaran Arcus took aim at the Varigir Terminators on the gantry. The Arcus warheads on the top managed to take out 2 of the Terminators, and las cannon took out the Thane just behind. A great result. They passed their leadership test, however. Last shoot in the turn, the Rhino takes a pop shot with the combi bolter at the Grey Slayers. Hits, but doesn't do any wounds. So Alpha Legion turn 2 summary. It's been a great turn for the Alpha Legion, with the outflanking units coming in, causing some real damage on the Arquita Bombard. I mean, it can't fire its main offensive weapon. The Caestus Assault Ram taking a big chunk out of that Grey Slayer squad in the middle, and the Arcus coming in and taking aim and destroying 3 of the Terminators on the gantry, giving a bit of breathing space for the Alpha Legion for the coming turns.
Space Wolves turn 3 movement. The Grey Slayer squad has shuffled around just to get a few more Grey Slayers in front of the Praetor to protect him a little bit. The other Grey Slayer squad has had the Priest move off, and the Grey Slayers are going either for the Saboteur or the Rhino. The las cannons have stayed where they are. The Bombard has moved forward to get the heavy bolters in range of what's left of the Rapier squads. The other Greyslayer squad has just held the ground into the middle, waiting for the Alpha Legion to come out their vehicles. The Varagir on the hill has just moved up a bit, try and get another line of sight onto that Sakaran, and the quad launchers have stayed still, just waiting for someone to get in range. Space Wolves turn 3 shooting. The Varagir open up into the Sakaran Arcus. 4 shots, but was only able to hit with 3, but causing no damage. The Space Wolves Bombard opens up into the solo Marine from the Rapier squad, only with its heavy bolters, managed to hit 3 times, causing 3 wounds, which they failed their armour save, killing him out. The Greyslayers have run forwards, setting up a charge into the Saboteur later on, and then the las cannons open fire with their snapshots into the assault ram, managed to get 1 hit but wasn't able to pen, forcing a jink. Space Wolves turn 3 assault phase. The Greyslayers declare a charge onto the Saboteur, where he snapshots in Overwatch with his combi melter with no effect, but then the Greyslayers foul their charge with only a 3-inch charge. End of Space Wolves turn 3. Making the ram jink was a bit of a bonus, but other than that, we're still just trying to manoeuvre to ice the Alpha Legion to come out their transports. It's a bit of cat and mouse going on here.
Alpha Legion turn 3 movement phase. The Saboteur is sneaking around the back of the rock, hoping to get a run move in the next phase away from the Greyslayer squad. The Rhino that came on in the previous turn has just moved to bring its front and side arc into the front of the Greyslayers, with the second Rhino having come in via outflank from reserve in this turn. The Caestus Assault Ram has moved directly ahead to get its Magnum Melter on those las cannons, hopefully for the next turn. Also coming in reserve this turn was the Xiphon Interceptor, who's got the Aqua to Bombard in its sights. The Rapier crewman remains stationary, hoping to get some more shots into the Greyslayers. The Rhino and the Dreadclaw drop pod remaining behind the Alpha Legion gantry there for a late turn movement. And Sakaras has stayed still with aiming at the Varagir Terminators, hoping to take advantage of the ripple fire. Alpha Legion turn 3 shooting phase, starting with the Sakaran Arcus, fired all complements of its weapons at the Varagir Terminators, however failed to wound with anything. The Rapier crewmen, in an act of revenge having lost their Rapier laser destroyers, took aim with 4 shots at the Greyslayers, hitting 3 times, wounding twice, and killing 2 Greyslayers, including the unit's Huskar. The Caestus Assault Ram, having zoomed in, took aim with the Magnum Melter on the front of the prow, scattered slightly, only managing to clip 2 of the Space Wolves with the Magnum Melter, only managing to kill 1 because of the cover saves. However, snap shooting missile launchers, because it jinked last turn, one of them managed to actually hit and took out another of the las cannons. Great turn of shooting. Having just entered in from reserve, the Xiphon Interceptor takes aim at the Aqua to Bombard, firing all of its weapons. The las cannons on the front managed to take off one of the side sponsons. However, the rotary missile launcher from underneath manages to take the last hull point off, wrecking the vehicle. Having positioned from the movement phase, the left-hand Rhino popped the hatches with 2 Marines shooting out the back, not managing to wound any of the Greyslayers. The second Rhino fired in the same manner at the closest Greyslayer squad, also hitting but not managing to cause any wounds. Alpha Legion turn 3 summary, a mixed bag. The Xiphon coming on, taking out the Aqua to Bombard, is great for attrition points at the end of the game. Reducing the firepower of that last cannon squad from the Caestus Assault Ram was absolutely key for this game. The Rhinos have just positioned themselves up for the next turn, ready for the charge of the Space Marines. However, the Arcus failing to wound with any of its shots was a real disappointment. However, previous turns, it certainly earned its points.
Space Wolves turn 4 movement. The Speaker of the Dead detaches himself from the las cannons to join the Greyslayer unit that moves forwards ready to either charge the Rhino or the Saboteur. The Praetor has left the other Grey Slayer squad to try and attack the Rhino. The Grey Slayer squad has moved forward to potentially get a charge later on. The Varigir has moved up to get a better line of sight on the Arcus. The Grey Slayers and the Quad Launchers have stayed where they are, waiting for the Alpha Legion to try and take their deployment. Space Wolves turn 4 shooting. The Quad Launchers have finally got a target in range, so they open up into the Assault Ram, snap shooting, getting one glancing hit, which it managed to jink. The Space Wolves Las Cannon squad open up into the Xiphon, just hoping to make it jinx because it caused a lot of damage last turn, which it did, but they didn't actually cause any damage on the Xiphon. The Varigir open up with their autocannons into the Sakaran Arcus. It's the only thing that's in range at the moment, so we took our shots, didn't actually cause any damage. Bit of a shame, hoping to get a couple of them weapons off because they have been dealing some damage. The Grey Slayer squad has run forward 6 inches, trying to get a line of sight on the Anvilus Dreadclaw, try and charge that in the next phase. The other Grey Slayer squad in the corner has run forward, trying to get a multi-charge on the Rhino and the Saboteur. Hopefully, the next phase should go quite okay for me, hopefully. Space Wolves turn 4 assault phase. The Grey Slayer squad in the middle there was aiming to charge the Dreadclaw, managed to foul the charge by a couple of inches. The Praetor charges the Rhino with a whopping 10-inch charge, and then the Grey Slayers with the Speaker of the Dead does a multi-charge into the Rhino and the Saboteur. In the combat between the Grey Slayers and the Saboteur and Rhino, the Speaker of the Dead issues a challenge to the Saboteur, which he swings in with his Initiative 5 Power Mace, hitting twice, wounding twice, but he passed the saves. The Saboteur returns their attacks, causes no wounds at all. 9 Grey Slayers swing into the Rhino, causing 5 hull points, end up wrecking it with the Alpha Legion disembarking from the Rhino. Finally, at Initiative 1, the Power Fist on the Grey Slayer swings into the Saboteur, misses with his 1 attack. Finally, the Praetor bundles in with his 8 attacks into the Rhino with his Thunder Hammer, absolutely wrecking it and forcing the Alpha Legion to disembark. End of turn 4 for the Space Wolves. Finally, we're getting to grips with the Alpha Legion, opening up all their tin cans, getting all the squishy goodness out.
Alpha Legion turn 4 movement phase. The Sakaran Arcus is going to remain stationary and make use of its Ripple Fire, hopefully taking out the Varigir Terminators this turn. The Rhino that was hiding behind the gantry has moved out 12 inches to make a run down the flank. The Dreadclaw drop pod disgorged the Linnean Terminators, and they're going to take aim at the Grey Slayer squad. In doing so, it then went into zooming flyer mode and has headed down into the enemy deployment zone. The crewmen from the Rapier Laser Destroyer have remained stationary, hoping to get some pop shots into the Grey Slayer squad. The 2 units that were disgorged from the Rhino in the previous turn have moved 6 inches towards the enemy deployment zone. The Kestis Assault Ram has moved in a straight line towards the enemy deployment zone, foregoing shooting this turn more than likely, ready for disgorging the Terminators in the following turn. And the Xiphon has gone into ongoing reserves, having no viable targets this turn. Alpha Legion turn 4 shooting phase. Opening the phase is the Sakaran Arcus, firing 8 shots from Ripple Fire into the Varigir Terminators, who have been destroyed to a man. In a bid to get into the enemy deployment zone, the Rhino has elected to move flat out 6 inches towards the Quad Launchers. The Linnean Terminators took aim with their Volkite chargers and shot at the Grey Slayers, managing to kill 1 with the Volkite charger and 1 with Deflagrate. The Rapier's crewman on top of the gantry took aim, hit 3 times, but didn't manage to wound. Having just had the Rhino destroyed by the Space Wolves Praetor, The Alpha Legion unit turned around with their bolters with 19 shots shooting at the Praetor. Hit 15 times, causing 9 wounds, and the Praetor managing to save all but 2 of them. The second Alpha Legion squad, having seen the success of the previous squad, turned around with their bolters and decided to shoot at the Praetor as well. Managing to hit 12 times, wounding 4 times. It's now up to the Space Wolf Praetor to save 4 2-ups.
Yep, 4 2-ups. Here they come. And he saves them all.
Unbelievable. Alpha Legion turned for assault phase. Having just taken out 2 Grey Slayers with Volkites, the Linneans decided to make a charge. Weathering the Overwatch, however, they failed their 7-inch charge with a 6. Striking at Initiative 5, the Saboteur and the Speaker of the Dead continued with their challenge. Saboteur managed to inflict 2 wounds, however they were both saved. And in return, the Speaker of the Dead managed to put 1 wound on the Saboteur.
The Grey Slayers swing back into the Saboteur with 9 Grey Slayers swinging in, causing no wounds to him. But then it's the one remaining Power Fist in the Grey Slayer pack, swings in with his 1 attack, hitting, wounding, and a failed invuln from the Saboteur, wiping him out. After the combat, the Space Wolves consolidate 2 inches towards the Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion turn 4 summary. A bit of a mixed bag for the Alpha Legion. The Sakaran Arcus managing to take out the Vargo Terminators was brilliant. However, not being able to kill the Praetor with 2 squads of Alpha Legion TAC Marines was really disappointing. I think we're in for a tough turn 5 from the Space Wolves.
Space Wolves turn 5 movement, with potential being the last turn of the game, trying to take out a few units. So I tried to move the Grey Slayer squad up on the gantry, which they managed to fail the terrain test. The Praetor, wanting a bit of retribution, lines up a charge onto the tactical squad that took 2 wounds off them. The other Grey Slayer squad, with the Speaker of the Dead, has lined up a charge onto the other tactical squad. The heavy support squad has stayed where it is. It has a nice line of sight into the Dreadclaw. The Grey Slayer squad in the middle has moved round, looking for a potential charge onto the Rhino, and the quad launchers have stayed whereabouts they are. Space Wolves turn 5 shooting. The heavy weapons with the last... let's start that one again, because that sounded... Space Wolves turn 5 shooting. The las cannons open up with their snapshots onto the Dreadclaw, not hitting, but causing it to jink. Then we open up with the quad launchers into the Rhino, causing 5 hull points and wrecking it, making the Alpha Legion disembark. The Grey Slayers have run to line up a charge into the Terminators. The Grey Slayers in the centre, they've run just to try and block off them Alpha Legion to coming into their deployment zone. Space Wolves turn 5 assault phase. The Grey Slayers charge into the Alpha Legion tactical squad. Then I declared a charge with the Praetor. We were only 2 wounds. Was a little bit nervous with the Overwatch, but that ended up being ineffective and he made it into the charge. Then we have the Grey Slayers charging into the Terminators, making the charge with no Overwatch as they're in Cataphracti Terminator armour. The combat between the Grey Slayers and the Terminators, Initiative 4, the Apothecary and only 1 Grey Slayer got into combat, swinging, causing 2 wounds, which just bounced off their armour. The Grey Slayers swinging at Initiative 1 with 2 Power Axes and 1 Power Fist, managing to get 4 wounds on them, which they end up failing all their invuns. They will get to swing back with their Power Fists and Chain Fists and all that, but I'm happy with taking out 4.
Alpha Legion swinging in with their Power Axes, managing to hit 4 times and wiping out 2 of the Grey Slayers. Having lost 4 Linneans in the combat, they struck back before they died, managing to hit with 4 of them and wiping out the 4 remaining Grey Slayers. Excellent result. The Harrower, left remaining on his own, has consolidated 5 inches to hide behind the gantry.
The combat between the Grey Slayers and the Alpha Legion Tactical Squad. At Initiative 5, the Speaker of the Dead steps up with his Power Mace, swinging and taking out 2 Alpha Legion. Still at Initiative 4, the Power Sword and the Power Mace swing in, killing the last Alpha Legion and the Sergeant. They will get to attack back though, but happy with that result so far.
So the Alpha Legion, striking at Initiative 4, struck back with 14 attacks, hit 7 times, only managed to cause 2 wounds. However, both saves were made by the Space Wolves.
The Space Wolves consolidate 3 inches, spreading out, heading towards the Alpha Legion lines. Combat between the Praetor and the Alpha Legion Tactical Squad. He swings in with his 8 attacks, killing 3 outright.
Alpha Legion striking back Initiative 4 with 12 attacks, hit 6 times, did 3 wounds, and the Praetor failed 2, his last 2 remaining armour saves, killing him. Having just killed the Space Wolves Praetor, the Alpha Legion turn around and run towards the enemy deployment zone, making a 5-inch consolidation move.
End of turn 5 for the Space Wolves. A mixed bag. Really happy that we took out the Tactical Squad with the Grey Slayers, but seeing that Praetor go is a big blow to the Space Wolves.
Alpha Legion, turn 5 movement phase, potentially the last turn of the game. The remaining Linnean Terminator and the crewman from the Rapier Laser Destroyer have remained stationary. The Xiphon Interceptor has come in from ongoing reserves to hopefully get some shots off at the las cannon team. The victorious Alpha Legion squad have made a move of 5 inches towards the enemy deployment zone. The Kestus Assault Ram has gone into hover mode and disgorged the Terminators and Praetor, hoping to get a charge off onto the las cannon squad and get some victory points in the enemy deployment zone. The Anvilus Dreadclaw has gone from zooming mode into hover mode to hopefully score a denial point in the enemy deployment zone if this is the final turn of the game. The Alpha Legion TAC squad coming out of the blown up Rhino have made a move of 6 inches towards the enemy deployment zone. And the Sakaran Arcus has remained stationary, hoping to use its ripple fire to take out some Grey Slayers. Alpha Legion turn 5 shooting phase, starting with the Sakaran Arcus. It opened up ripple firing its Arcus warheads, firing a las cannon and 3 heavy bolter shots, managed to take out 4 Grey Slayers and the Huskarl. Excellent round of shooting again from the Arcus. Xiphon Interceptor, having come in from ongoing reserves, fires its full complement into the las cannon heavy support squad. Doesn't manage to do any wounds at all with either the las cannons or the missile launcher from underneath. Alpha Legion squad in the middle of the board made a run move of only 2 inches into the enemy deployment zone. The Dreadclaw drop pod flat out moved to the corner of the board, hopefully making it a denial unit for the end of the game. So the Kestus Assault Ram takes aim at the Grey Slayer squad in the centre of the board, fires 2 crack missiles, missing with 1 but killing with the other one. The 2 remaining crewmen from the Rapier Laser Destroyer took aim down their barrels at the Grey Slayer squad on the left flank, however all shots missed. Alpha Legion turn 5 assault phase. The tactical squad made a charge against the quad launchers. Overwatch was completely ineffectual. They made their charge. The Terminator squad with the Praetors, having not shot in the last turn, decided to make a charge against the las cannon heavy weapons squad. Overwatch, 1 las cannon hit but failed to wound. The Terminators made their charge easily. Combat between the Legion Terminators and the las cannon heavy support squad. The heavy support squad strike first because the Terminators charge through difficult terrain.
The Space Wolves swinging with 6 attacks due to counter-attack, only hitting with 3 of them, but causing no wounds.
Alpha Legion Praetor, striking at Initiative 1 due to charging through difficult terrain, strikes with 7 attacks on the charge, only hitting 3 times and killing 1 Space Wolf outright. The 2 Legion Terminators with the paired lightning claws struck next, hitting 8 times, causing no wounds even with shred. Last to strike were the Legion Terminators with power fists and chain fists, striking with 13 attacks, managing to hit 10 times, only wounding 5, but that's all we needed, wiping the remainder of the squad. Consolidation move of 6 inches. Combat between the Alpha Legion TAC squad and the Space Wolves quad launchers, charging in with 3 attacks on the charge each, 27 attacks from the regular line TAC Marines, hit 17 times, causing 9 wounds, killing 4 of the Space Wolves.
The retaliation from the Rapier squad with their 12 attacks because of counterattack, hitting only 3 times but killing 1 Marine.
Striking at Initiative 1, the Power Fist Sergeant comes striking in with 4 attacks. He only manages to hit once, but he does kill 1 of the Space Marine, wiping out a crewman, forcing a leadership test, which they subsequently failed, forcing the Space Wolves to run away 7 inches, and the Alpha Legion consolidate 6 inches, crucially deep into the enemy deployment zone. Alpha Legion turn 5 summary, great turn for the Alpha Legion. It was one of manoeuvring into the enemy deployment zone, ready to claim some objectives for the end of the game. So the mission demands a random game length, so on a roll of a 4+, we go into a 6th and final turn. So that's a 3, that means that is the end of the game.
Keith, Josh, what an amazing game. Keith, you must be exhausted because you've had 2 amazing games in 2 days, so I can't imagine how you're feeling.
I'm starting to feel it a little bit, but it was a good game, so it's kind of kept me buzzing through it. So
good stuff. I think it's fair to say that we are hot and sweaty, aren't we? It's pretty horrid.
Yes.
Humid and muggy and horrible.
Yeah. And we've got thunder and lightning over at Pride Rock at the moment as well, so it's
all very dramatic.
It's a dramatic end to a game. Now, before we get stuck into all the gory details, let's just do the victory points because we took a long time to get to them last game. Let's start with the Space Wolves. Keith, you were a little bit unsuccessful, unfortunately. No points scored for getting in the enemy's deployment zone. No denial, no scoring.
No.
No warlords.
No, nothing. I feel like I killed a lot, just nothing, just not enough.
No.
So.
And you both drew on the attrition, so no points scored for attrition. So unfortunately, the Space Wolves or the Velka Fenrica score a big fat 0. But the Alpha Legion were a little bit more victorious. It was quite an amazing score, actually. 8 points scored for... 7 points scored for the objective, for getting the enemy's deployment zone, for both scoring a non-denial. And then you obviously got Slay the Warlord.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was... it felt like quite tactical at the end. In some ways, I felt quite bad, but that's the Alpha Legion way. It was all about getting in that deployment zone and holding back the Space Wolves for as long as possible.
I have to say, I think the Alpha Legion played an absolutely superb game. They kept the Space Wolves at bay for the journey of the game, taking out their key units in the form of the Aquitor Bombard, and then getting in the enemy deployment zone at the very end was just... I think it was textbook, if I don't want to be too complimentary, but it was a textbook game for the Alpha Legion.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think you're really unlucky with that final roll of the dice. I think if it had been a turn 6, we might be looking at a slightly different score. But I think I managed to get just enough either scoring or denial units in the enemy deployment zone at the end, which was the objective of the game. So.
I mean, the way you played it was fantastic. Everything that was coming up the table, you dealt with. And yeah, them last few units that you managed to sneak in on turn 5, having the last turn just helped you out with that.
You did not make it easy for me though, because it just felt like there was wave after wave of Space Wolves coming, and just trying to keep them at bay with the small units that I had at the back line there was quite difficult. So well done for that.
I think there were some great moves from the Alpha Legion. You kept feeding the Space Wolves units, and particularly deep into their lines, so they had to either move forward and give up points to later on in the game, or they had to come back and kill you. So I think it played really well there. Keith, I think you struggled getting your troops up the board.
Yeah, he had a lot of firepower that could make a big impression on the units. So when they're moving forward, I'm just keep taking them away from the front, just knocking me back. And in the end, I just wasn't quick enough getting up there.
I love the idea of this, though. I love the 45 Grey Slayers. I love the Varangier walk-in. But, we talked about a lot during the game together about, how Spartans are such an integral part of lists because they are an unbelievable delivery system. Having said that, though, we saw the Caestus, it shot some units, but it only delivered 1 charge in the end. But it delivered them in the right place at the right time to kill a unit and score as well, and deny.
I think for me, that one of the hardest, other than the horde of ravaging Space Wolves coming across the table, was trying to eliminate some of those key units. So the Arbiters, yes, but it was the it was the quad mortars that I was absolutely terrified of,
Yeah.
and just trying to deny you units to actually fire at for the majority of the game was absolutely key for me. Hence the hiding of the Arcus out of line of sight and using Pride Rock as much as possible to protect the flyers.
We do see a lot of so we see a few Arcuses on the channel, but they do get blown up turn 1, turn 2. But unbelievably, you made a full 5 turns with your Arcus, which was pretty
lost
cool.
one whole point at the very beginning, I think, turn 1 or 2. Managed to survive. I think I only had one round of poor shooting.
Yeah,
where it didn't actually.
That's the thing. What I've seen of the Arcus, they've always been 50-50, and your one seemed to do
just turned up today, didn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's really good. That was a really thrilling game. I was on the edge of my seat the whole turn, and there was a couple of turns I thought, holy hell, it could go either way. But in the end, the Alpha Legion clinched it. But I think both armies put up a really fantastic game. Now, gentlemen, you are on social media, so if we want to follow you and your progress or anything you've got up and coming, Josh, where can we find you?
They find me on Instagram. I'm Chthonic Waterbeast. That's Chthonic_water_beast. So you can find me there. Ask me any questions about the army. I've got a few things ongoing at the moment with Talons of the Emperor and Cybernetic army that I'm building up. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram, no problem.
White Talons as well, I think.
White, yeah. So I went for the white scheme that you see. I think the Solar Watch in 40k language, but this is very much 30k army. So yeah, it seemed like a really good idea at the time. That's something that stands out from the regular Gold Boys. It was absolutely nightmare to paint, but I hope I did. I hope I did them justice. They're stunning models, so hopefully the paint scheme reflects that.
Yeah, they do look great. And Keith, obviously, you're a member of the Monovol podcast, so just give us a little brief about that and where we can find you.
Yeah, it's 3 guys that love talking about heresy. You can find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes, or you can catch us on Instagram at the Monovol podcast, or Facebook, which we have a group and a page, which is all under at the Monovol podcast.
Fantastic. And your hobbies are under the Monovol podcast, aren't they?
They are. That's the best place to find me.
Great stuff. All right. Well, these gents have both got a very long trip home, so I really appreciate your efforts and thank you so much for making it over to the channel.
Absolute pleasure.
Lovely to have you here and always welcome back. So thank you so much for that. You can, of course, see all of the photos taken from this game on the Facebook page when the game is released, just at 30k channel on Instagram, or Facebook page is 30k channel. Again, thank you so much for watching. Gents, thank you.
No, thank you. Absolute pleasure.
Awesome. We'll see you again very soon.